We're back on golf today. Roger Maltbie, one of the great voices in golf, just one of the great dudes in golf, really. Five-time winner on the PGA Tour between 1975 and 1985. 55, count them, 55 top 10 finishes. And his career on the tour began working as an on-course reporter for NBC Sports in 1991. This week, he makes his season return at the Honda Classic. Always exciting when Roger is on the call. Roger joins us right now, and great to see you back out for another season, one of the best to ever do it, and you return to a golf course that feels a little bit like an outlier on the PGA Tour, a true brute. How does PGA National feel so demanding for these players?
Well, as you say, it is a brute. To get around this golf course, there's a lot of windmills and dragons out there, water everywhere you look, and to avoid disasters is really key here. Certainly when you're talking the bear trap 15, 16, 17, lots of bad things can happen. So there's a lot to navigate here. If the wind is up, it's a demanding golf course, and I think the players like the challenge. I really do. It's not going to be a real low-scoring affair, and I think ball striking is rewarded in a big way here. So I think it's popular with the players that play here.
With all of that in mind, Roger, with the premium on ball striking and a certain sense of grittiness, who do you look at this week as somebody who's probably worth looking at as a potential winner on Sunday afternoon?
Well, I'm going out with Brooks Koepka this afternoon, and I think he's the kind of player that just relishes difficult condition. I think I would expect him to keep putting up solid rounds, and I think when we get to the end, he'll be in the mix. That would be my thought.
Roger, does this week feel a bit like a throwback week? I mean, in terms of strategy for these players, it just doesn't feel like people are grabbing driver after driver after driver like you see at other tour events?
Yeah. I mean, it's a golf course that requires placement and strategy. It's a place where if you play boldly, which they do love to do now, and perform, you can gain great advantage. But you also bring big numbers into play. So I think players wisely and frequently will hit less than driver to ensure that they avoid some of the windmills and dragons I was referring to earlier, and just try to keep the ball in play, and you just have to manage this golf course.
Roger, we mentioned you've been doing this now for 30 years as an announcer after a long playing career. I'm sure you've seen a lot of remarkable shots in your time walking the golf course behind these players. What's the most memorable shot you've seen in your days as an announcer?
Oh, my goodness. That's like trying to pick your favorite kid. One that stands out to me and always will was the 2000 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. Tiger Woods on the 6th hole had put the ball in the right rough, and we had seen players put it in the right rough before. It's a par 5 where the players drive out. Stillwater Cove is to the right, bunkers left, and then you play up a hill, blind shot to the green for your second. Either lay up short of the green on top or go for the green. He was in the right rough, and we had seen player after player that had put it over there, had just pitched the ball out sideways to the fairway and played a very long blind shot up toward the green in 3. Well, he walked in there, and he moved heaven and earth. I mean, grass flew everywhere, and the ball came up over the hill, ran up on the edge of the green, and I said, it's just not a fair fight. I mean, when you watch players, and this is the thrill I still get from it, and you watch them hit shots that you know there are only a handful of people in the world, including professional golfers, and they hit the shot and pull it off, I mean, I still get goosebumps. The hair on my arms goes up. And I mean, it's never stopped being fun watching the best in the world do what they do.
Roger,
that's the PGA Tour, week in and week out.
Roger, going back to following Tiger in those early days, the late 90s into the early 2000s, because now we see these crazy athletic guys out on the PGA Tour that can hit it forever, and they can hit those types of shots like you're talking about at Pebble Beach. But Tiger was the outlier back in the late 90s and early 2000s in that department. What was it like watching and observing Tiger go out his business, knowing he was one of those guys that could pull off those types of shots that nobody else on the PGA Tour could pull off?
Well, it was thrilling. It was thrilling to watch, and you knew, I mean, Jack Nicklaus was the dominant player of his time, no doubt. And he was better, little better than the competition. Back in the late 90s and around 2000, there was a huge difference between Tiger and what was next. The gap was unbelievable. He was out driving guys 30 yards. I mean, the difference in power and the things he could do on the golf course, he stood alone. And you knew when you watched him, if he played, he'd refer to his A game and B game. If he played anywhere near his B game, or heaven forbid his A game, it was over. It really was. And so when all is said and done, I think I will reflect back on those years I got to watch Tiger, starting and playing U.S. amateurs. His evolution as a player and what he became as a golfer was really something to watch, and I was more than thrilled to have a front row seat, to be honest with you.
Roger, you've had that front row seat to the best who've ever played. You've seen great shots. And when you're out there walking around, you're also going to see great players hit lousy shots. And it's got to give you a sense of perspective that you don't need to be perfect to succeed on the PGA Tour. Is that perspective you wish you'd had as a player? Or did you have that kind of perspective as a player that you could survive with something short of excellent every week?
Right. Well, my particular skill levels, I had to be pretty good to compete at the highest places in a tournament. So I had to be on. But, yeah, the one thing you learn watching these great players is they don't hit every shot perfect. And they manage their games, and they don't make many mistakes. You watch guys like Jim Furyk. You watch him play golf, and he has been a great player for a long time. Doesn't make many big mistakes, manages a golf course well. Every shot is not perfect, but they get through it. And I think, by and large, as a player, you feel more often that you have to be perfect, that you can't make a mistake. Mistakes happen, and you have to navigate them, and you have to get through them, and the best players, the guys who win, do that. Yeah, it becomes very apparent, Eamon. I think you're dead on the money.
Roger, do you have any moment where you were on the golf course and maybe you spoke a little too loud and a player maybe picked up on what you were saying or even heard what you were saying?
Oh, yeah. And was busted by none other than Tiger Woods. We were doing the President's Cup in George, South Africa, out in an early match, and we were out on a part of the golf course where there weren't too many fans. And I was on the call, and he was ready to play an approach shot to the green. And I thought I was being quiet enough, but he backed off the shot and looked at me with the camera dead on and said, "Come on, Roger." Which is absolutely your worst nightmare. I have been given the nickname of course whisperer. And the last thing, certainly as a former player, that you would want to do is to be overheard by a player or disturb a player while playing. It's your worst nightmare. You don't want to do it. So I got busted in front of everybody, and it was it was an embarrassing moment. Thank you. There've been a few. There's only been a couple.
Listen, we only bring up a negative moment on the golf course to praise you. You're one of the great listens. You make every telecast better, and we can't wait to hear you on the call at the Honda. Have a great week.
Thank you very much, Shane. You're very kind, Eamon. You guys have a good day.